Commander Byung-ho stood in his control room watching 17 screens at once. Each screen showed a different city. In every city, the same sad story played out. Humans in gray uniforms telling other humans what to do. Human kids learning alien languages in schools. Human farmers giving their crops to alien ships. Order, control, survival. It looked like peace. It felt like slavery. Lieutenant Hana walked over with her daily report pad. "Commander, here are the morning numbers." She spoke in that careful voice everyone used around him now. That voice that said she was following orders, but secretly wondering if Byung-ho was a traitor or a hero. Nobody knew. Maybe not even Byung-ho himself. He took the pad without saying anything. 47 arrests last night. 15 people who might be helping the resistance. 3 places where fighters kept weapons now destroyed. The alien computers predicted almost everyone would obey within a year. "The alien boss wants to talk to you," Hana added. "He says you're doing great work." Great work. Byung-ho wanted to throw up. As if he chose this. As if anyone chose this. He remembered the invasion day like it was yesterday. Actually, it was exactly 1 year and 3 months ago. Giant alien warships covering the sky like a roof. Their message played on every radio, every TV, every phone. Give up or die. Humanity fought back. The battle lasted 30 seconds. Every human ship in space turned to vapor. Weapons that bent space itself cut through Earth's defenses like scissors through paper. Then the aliens pointed at Byung-ho. You're in charge now. Help us rule these humans. Keep them calm. Keep them alive. Or we'll kill everyone and find someone else." What kind of choice was that? "Tell the alien boss that everything is going perfectly," Byung-ho said to Hana. "The resistance is falling apart. Taesung doesn't have supplies. His people are starving. They'll quit soon." Every word was true. Every word was also a lie, because the aliens didn't know that humans are experts at pretending to lose right up until they win. In the northern mountains, Taesung crouched in a cave the alien scanners couldn't see. The cave smelled like sweat and gun oil and determination. Around him, exhausted fighters worked on weapons, treated injuries, and whispered about plans. They had nothing. No ships, no super weapons, no technology from the future. Just old guns that sometimes jammed, bombs made from farm chemicals, and rage that burned hotter than the sun. But they had something else. Something the aliens never faced before. Humans spent 10,000 years inventing new ways to kill each other. Every trick, every trap, every dirty method. Now they were using all that knowledge against aliens. "Are we actually ready for this?" Ji-won asked. She used to be a farmer. She grew corn and soybeans. Now she grew bombs in buckets and fury in her heart. Her little sister died in the first week of occupation, shot for breaking curfew. Taesung stared at their crude map scratched into stone. "Ready? No, but we stopped being ready a long time ago. Now we just do what needs doing." On the other side of the cave, Dae-hyun worked on a broken alien weapon. He'd captured it 3 months ago. Since then, he'd taken it apart and put it back together 60 times. Parts and wires covered the ground around him like metal spaghetti. "I figured something out," Dae-hyun said. "He used to fix tractors. Now he fixed alien guns and turned them into traps. Every alien weapon has a power core. Every power core vibrates at the same frequency. It's like they all hum the same song. If I can make them all sing louder at the same time." "They explode," Ji-won said. Her eyes got bright. "We can turn their weapons into bombs. Right, but we need to get close to them." "Really close." Taesung nodded. His face looked tired. He hadn't slept more than 3 hours in 6 months. "So we get close. The aliens think war works a certain way. Armies meet armies. Ships bomb buildings. The side with more soldiers wins. That's how they won for 3,000 years. But we don't have more soldiers," Ji-won said. "No. So we don't fight their way. We fight ours," Dae-hyun smiled.
"Cheat, exactly." Taesung stood up.
His bones cracked.
"Get every fighter we have."
"I don't care if they're injured. I don't care if they're scared. Tell them to bring everything that can burn, cut, or explode. We're done playing defense." In space high above the planet, the alien leader Vex Thalan looked at his computer screens. All the numbers told him he was winning. The human resistance was weak, scattered, dying. Commander Byung-ho's cooperation was working exactly as predicted. 40 days until total victory. Maybe less. Vex Thalan had seen this pattern 200 times on 200 planets. The ending never changed. The primitives always lost. He felt very smart, very confident, He should have been terrified. Back in Settlement 7, Byung-ho closed his office door. Hana stood there waiting. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. "You know," Hana finally said. "Not a question. A statement." "Know what?" Byung-ho asked carefully. "You know that I know. That you've been lying to the aliens for months. Every weapons cache they think we destroyed was full of old farm equipment. Every resistance leader they think we caught was just a random civilian we paid to pretend. Every report about the resistance getting weaker is completely fake." Byung-ho's heart stopped. If she reported him, the aliens would kill him. Then they'd kill everyone in his family. Then they'd probably kill everyone in his city just to make a point. "And," he whispered. Hana pulled a small data chip from her pocket. "And I've been helping you. These are the real locations of alien supply depots, weak points in their communication network. Guard schedules, everything Taesung needs for what comes next." Byung-ho took the chip. His hands shook. "Why?" "Because my brother died in the 32nd War. Because my mother died in a labor camp. Because every night I go to sleep hating myself for wearing this uniform. But mostly," Hana's eyes got hard as stone, "because someone has to fight back. And if we're going to burn, we might as well take them with us." In the cave, Taesung held a meeting with his top fighters, all 17 of them. That's all he had for leaders. 17 people to coordinate 12,000 fighters across an entire continent. "In 3 days, we hit them everywhere at once," Taesung said. "No communication, no radio, no computers, just a simple signal. When the morning supply truck leaves Settlement 7, everyone attacks." "That's insane," someone said. "Yes," Taesung agreed. "That's why it'll work. They're expecting us to be smart, careful, strategic. Instead, we're going to be crazy." Ji-won laughed. "It sounded like breaking glass. You just described our entire species." "No," Taesung said. "I just described our advantage." The Galactic Council met in emergency session. Representatives from 7 species filled the chamber. On every screen, the planet Kepler 442b rotated slowly. The entire planet was marked in red now. Contested, unstable, out of control. "Explain," the Council Prime demanded, their voice echoing through multiple translators, "how 12,000 primitives have fought a 400,000 soldier occupation force to a standstill." High Strategos Vex Thalan looked smaller than he had weeks ago. His eye stalks drooped. "The humans use tactics that violate all standard combat doctrine. They don't maintain supply lines because they take supplies from us or make them locally. They don't hold territory because they consider all territory theirs. They don't distinguish between military and civilian because their entire population has become combatant." "Impossible," the crystalline Counselor Shepatar pulsed. "No species can maintain that coordination without advanced." "They use children with colored balls for signals," Vexthalin interrupted. "They use chalk marks on walls. They use the pattern of laundry hung outside to dry. Their communication network is so primitive our sensors can't detect it because we're looking for technology." Silence filled the massive chamber. "Furthermore," Vexthalin continued, "they've weaponized our own doctrine. Every tactical response we make, they've already planned for and converted to their advantage. When we deployed ground forces, they vanished into crowds. When we threatened civilians, the civilians became fighters. When we destroyed their bases, the bases were empty, and the explosions damaged our orbital platforms." "What do you recommend?" the Council Prime asked. The word came out quietly. "Withdrawal." The chamber erupted. Withdrawal? The Council had never withdrawn. Not once in 3,000 years of conquest, never. "There must be another option," several counselors insisted at once. "There is," Vexthalin said flatly. "Total planetary destruction. Reduce the entire surface to ash. But that violates 63 Council protocols. It destroys the resources we came to acquire, and it shows the entire galaxy that we fear a single primitive species." More silence. Longer this time. "They're offering terms," Shepatar said quietly. "Commander Byung-ho transmitted them this morning. Complete Council withdrawal in exchange for the humans agreeing not to pursue revenge or share their tactical innovations with other species." "They're threatening us," a snake-like counselor hissed. "A species that still uses chemical bullets?" "A species," Vexthalin corrected, "that turned our own orbital platforms against us using manual controls and sheer determination. A species that fights without honor, without rules, without the limitations that 3,000 years of civilized warfare have imposed on the rest of us." "Yes, Counselor. They are threatening us, and we should take the threat very seriously. On Kepler 442b, Tae-sung met Commander Byung-ho in what remained of Settlement 7's government building. Around them, resistance fighters and collaborator forces stood together, weapons lowered but ready. Trust was still new and fragile. "You played your role well," Tae-sung said. Byung-ho's jaw tightened. "I sent people to prison. I signed arrest warrants. I enforced their laws. People died because of my orders. You saved our species. If we'd resisted immediately, the Council would have exterminated us. You gave us time to learn, to plan, to become what we needed to become." Tae-sung held out his hand. "History will judge all of us, Commander. But today I thank you." After a long pause, Byung-ho shook the offered hand. "The Council is arguing," Hana reported, monitoring the communications they'd learned to intercept. 3 factions: withdraw, escalate, or negotiate permanent subjugation. "Let them argue," Ji-won said, cleaning an alien rifle she'd been using for months. "Meanwhile, we're already sharing our technical manuals with every resistance movement in this sector. The Vrin insurgency on Tau Ceti 4. The Beltharian independence fighters. The Krellic separatists. They're all very interested in how we made Council doctrine useless." Dae-hyun looked up from his work. "You realize this means we just started a galactic revolution? The Council maintains power through technological superiority and proven strategy. If even half the conquered species learn to fight like we do..." "Good," Tae-sung said. "Maybe the Council will learn that conquest has costs they're not willing to pay." Young-soo laughed. "You really think they'll actually leave?" "I think they're doing math, and for the first time in 3,000 years the math doesn't favor them. Not because we're stronger or smarter, but because we fight like we've already lost everything, which means we can't lose anything more." In orbit, the Council fleet began its departure sequence. High Strategos Vexthalon watched Kepler 442b shrink on his displays and wrote his final report. Operation terminated. Human integration deemed inefficient and cost prohibitive. Recommend quarantine protocols and observation for species designation, human. He didn't use the word defeat. The Council never used that word. But in his private thoughts, Vexthalon knew the truth. Humanity hadn't just won a battle. They'd exposed a fundamental weakness in Council doctrine. They'd proven that technology could be defeated by creativity and total commitment. They'd shown that sometimes the most dangerous enemy wasn't the one with the best weapons, but the one willing to use anything as a weapon. On Kepler 442b, as the last Council ship jumped to faster than light speed, 60,000 humans emerged from buildings and shelters to watch their sky clear for the first time in over a year. Sujin's neighbors would tell her daughter's story. The seamstress who took 4 alien soldiers with her, Woo-jin, would reopen his shop. The water would be clean again. Just water. Jinna would teach her students real history now, not Council propaganda, and Tae-sung, Ji-won, Dae-hyun, Young-soo, Hana, Byung-ho, and 12,000 others would remain ready. Because they understood something the Council was just beginning to learn. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology, wasn't numbers, wasn't even creativity. It was the absolute refusal to accept that anything was impossible. 5 years later, the Galactic Council met again. But the chamber looked different now. 17 species that had been conquered clients now sent independent representatives. The Vrin, the Beltharians, the Krellics, all species that had studied the human protocols and used them successfully. The Council's power wasn't broken, but it was checked. Balanced Limited, Vexthalon, now retired and teaching at the Quarian Strategic Academy, gave lectures that became famous across the sector. We thought our doctrine was perfect because it never failed. We forgot that perfection is just a lack of appropriate challenge. The humans taught us that doctrine without adaptation is simply tradition. And tradition, no matter how ancient, cannot defeat an enemy willing to write completely new rules. On Earth and Kepler 442b and 17 other human colonies, people lived normal lives. They worked. They raised families. They argued about sports and politics and whose turn it was to take out the trash. But in military academies across the galaxy, in resistance movements on occupied worlds and strategic planning centers everywhere, one phrase had become universal: fight like a human. It meant improvise. It meant refuse to surrender. It meant turn every disadvantage into a weapon. It meant when they expect you to break, become unbreakable. The Council had expected a breeze, a minor problem on the way to another easy victory. Humanity had given them a hurricane, and the galaxy would never be the same. Sometimes the most dangerous storms come from clear skies. Sometimes the primitive species with old weapons and homemade bombs teaches advanced civilizations their most important lesson: never underestimate someone with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Humanity didn't win because they were stronger. They won because they were willing to do whatever it took. The aliens learned something that day, something they'd never forget. When humans have their backs against the wall, that's when they're most dangerous. Because humans don't give up. They never have. They never will. The Council's response was textbook perfect. Overwhelming force applied to resistance strongholds, surgical strikes on command centers, mathematical precision designed to restore order within 48 hours. It would have worked beautifully against any enemy in their database, but Taesung's forces had already evacuated when the massive Korean warship turned the northern mountains into a sea of melted rock and burning slag. They destroyed exactly 0 fighters, just empty caves and fake bases and one really convincing hologram. The actual resistance had melted into the civilian population like sugar and water. 60,000 regular people, 12,000 fighters hiding among them. Good luck figuring out which was which. This doesn't make sense, Vexthalin said, staring at his tactical display. They gave up defensible positions. They moved into urban areas where we have all the advantages. Basic military doctrine says, human doctrine, one of his advisors interrupted carefully, seems to be survive until the enemy gets frustrated, then exploit their mistakes. Vexthalin's eye stalks curled tight with anger. Then we don't make mistakes. Deploy ground forces to all settlements. Begin systematic identification procedures. Anyone who resists is a combatant. Anyone who helps them is a combatant. We'll search building by building if necessary. In Settlement 7, Commander Byung-ho received the order with what he hoped looked like grim determination. Understood, Strategos. Beginning immediate implementation. He closed the channel and turned to Hana. Alert every cell. Tell them the Council is coming down in force. Phase 2 starts now. Sir, that means... I know exactly what it means, Lieutenant. What it meant was that 60,000 civilians were about to become guerrilla fighters. What it meant was every interaction would be potentially deadly. What it meant was the Council's occupation force was about to experience urban warfare for the first time in 3,000 years. The Quarian combat units deployed at dawn. Squad leader Morthkin led his 12 soldiers down the main street of Settlement 7. Their armor was impenetrable. Their weapons could punch through concrete. Their sensors could detect heartbeats through walls. They felt invincible. They were wrong. The first civilian they passed was a woman named Soo-jin. She was a seamstress before the invasion. Her daughter had been killed 3 months ago in what the aliens called a compliance action. Soo-jin was carrying groceries. She smiled at the alien soldiers as they passed. When they were 5 steps past her, she pulled a grenade from the grocery bag. The explosion killed 4 soldiers instantly. 2 blocks over, a shopkeeper named Wu Jin offered alien troops fresh water. It was a hot day. The soldiers were grateful. The water tasted fine, clean, cool. 12 hours later, when those soldiers were vomiting and hallucinating from the compounds Jiwan had synthesized from local plants, resistance fighters walked into their barracks and took all their weapons without firing a shot. At the settlement school, a teacher named Jinna taught her students Galactic Standard as ordered. But she also used her knowledge to decode alien communications. She hid messages in student homework, simple math problems that were actually supply depot locations, grammar exercises that were really guard schedules. She passed everything to Youngsu's technical team. Every civilian became a potential threat. Every interaction became a potential ambush. Every moment of peace was potentially the calm before violence. The Council's forces discovered they were fighting an enemy that looked exactly like the people they were supposed to protect. Fighters who attacked without warning and disappeared without trace. Warriors who turned every advantage of technology and training into a liability by simply refusing to fight fair. They're using children as lookouts, Morthican reported after losing 3 more soldiers to an ambush signaled by a 10-year-old girl playing with a red ball. They're hiding weapons in hospitals. They're putting explosives in. They're fighting total war, Commander Byung-ho said calmly, knowing every word was being recorded. Strategos, I strongly recommend withdrawal to orbital positions. The ground situation has become completely untenable. Absolutely not. Vexthalen's translator barely contained his rage. We don't retreat from primitives. Deploy additional forces, institute martial law, execute anyone who... The transmission cut out as Settlement 7's power grid, which Daehyun's team had been quietly rewiring for months, suddenly channeled its entire output through the Council's main communication relay. The explosion destroyed 3 more orbital platforms. In the sudden silence, Taesung sent a message to his scattered forces through their network of hand signals, light flashes and dead drops that no alien sensor could intercept. The message was simple. They think we're cornered. They think we're desperate. Show them what cornered and desperate humans can do. All across the settlements, the resistance responded. In Settlement 3, resistance fighters dressed as alien collaborators walked into the main garrison and released a biological agent that made every alien soldier violently ill for 72 hours. Non-lethal, but completely incapacitating. In Settlement 9, Youngsu's tech team hacked the automated defense grid and made it target alien ships instead of ground threats. 2 supply vessels were destroyed before the aliens figured out what happened. In Settlement 15, Ji-won personally led a raid on the alien command center, using a tunnel system that the settlers had been digging since the invasion started. They captured the base commander, took all his intelligence files, and were gone before the alarm even sounded. Every rule of civilized warfare was broken. Every expectation of honorable combat was violated. Every assumption about how primitive species fought was proven wrong. High Strategos Vexthalan stared at his tactical display and finally understood the scope of his mistake. The Council had prepared for military engagement. Armies against armies, fleets against fortresses, honor and strategy and the slow mathematics of attrition. But humanity had invented war. They'd spent 10,000 years perfecting it in all its brutal, pragmatic, no-rules ugliness. And now, for the first time, the Council faced an enemy that fought not for glory or territory or resources, but simply to survive. And surviving was humanity's oldest and best skill. Counselor, Vexthalan said quietly to his communication officer, send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them I require immediate strategic consultation. The situation has become complicated. It was the first time in 3,000 years that a Council military operation had been described with that word. On the ground, Morthkan and what remained of his squad, huddled in a fortified position, surrounded by a city full of people who might be civilians or might be fighters. His sensors showed hundreds of heat signatures. His tactical computer couldn't determine which ones were threats. All of them, he realized. Every single one. How do we fight this? One of his soldiers asked. Morthkan had no answer. His training covered orbital bombardment, ground assault, fortification defense, fleet tactics. Nothing in 3,000 years of Council warfare had prepared him for an enemy that turned grocery bags into weapons, water into poison, and children into scouts. In the mountains, Taesung received reports from all 17 settlements. Alien forces bogged down, supply lines disrupted, communications compromised, morale collapsing. It's working, Ji-won said, reading the latest intelligence. For now, Taesung replied. But they'll adapt, or they'll get desperate. Desperate enemies do desperate things. So do we, Daehyun pointed out. Taesung smiled grimly. That's what I'm counting on. The Council's war strategy was simple and beautiful. Take control of space above the planet. Send down ground troops with better weapons. Wait for the locals to surrender. 3,000 years of winning had made it perfect. Taesung's strategy was much simpler. Hit them everywhere at the same time with everything you have. Then when they think you're finished, hit them again. It started on a Tuesday morning. The resistance had no fancy watches that all showed the same time. No radios to talk to each other. No way to coordinate attacks across a whole continent. What they had was a basic agreement. When the morning supply convoy left Settlement 7, everyone would attack at once. At 6 in the morning, the convoy rolled out exactly on schedule. The aliens were very punctual. 15 armored trucks, 4 flying drones, 1 squad of Korean soldiers, with enough weapons to destroy a city block. The alien computers said there was 0 chance of a successful attack. The computers had never met Daehyun. The convoy's 3rd truck made it 4 kilometers. Then its power core started vibrating at exactly the frequency Daehyun had discovered. Then the 4th truck. Then all 15 trucks at the same time. The explosions lit up the morning sky. People in orbit could see it, while alien response teams rushed to figure out what happened. G1's unit hit the fuel depot at Settlement 12. They used stolen alien explosives mixed with homemade napalm that burned so hot it melted steel. The depot's automatic defenses never even turned on. Why? Because the defenses were looking for enemies attacking from outside. They weren't programmed to worry about the maintenance crew that had been planting bombs for 3 weeks while pretending to fix pipes. At Settlement 4, a fighter named Youngsu led his team right through the front gate. They wore gray uniforms stolen 6 months ago. They walked to the communications hub like they belonged there. Then they quietly killed everyone inside and started broadcasting fake "everything is fine" messages across the whole planet. In 17 cities, 12,000 fighters attacked targets that should have been impossible to reach. In the occupation station, Commander Byung-ho watched his screens with an expression of perfect shock. Inside, he felt something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. Real hope. "Get me situation reports now," he shouted, playing his role perfectly. "How did they coordinate this?" "Our intelligence said they couldn't possibly—" "Commander!" Hana interrupted. Their eyes met for just a second. In that tiny moment, Byung-ho saw that she knew everything. Knew he'd been feeding fake information to the aliens for months. Knew that every weapons cache destroyed was really just old junk. Knew that every resistance leader captured was just a random person playing pretend. Knew that every report showing the resistance failing was complete fiction. Knew, and had been helping. Multiple breaches in all 17 settlements, she continued, her voice full of fake panic. They're hitting infrastructure and command centers. "It's coordinated, sir." Highly coordinated. High above the planet, Vexthalon watched the same information on his screens. His confidence cracked like old glass. This wasn't supposed to happen. Primitive species don't launch sophisticated multi-point attacks. They don't turn council weapons into bombs. They don't have the ability to— "Strategos," his tactical officer said, using the alien word for commander. "We're detecting huge energy signatures in the northern mountains. Multiple locations. They're turning something on. What could they possibly—" The answer came fast. 3 captured alien orbital defense platforms, the ones his report said were destroyed 8 months ago, suddenly came online. All 3 aimed at every council ship in low orbit. The platforms were built to fight off invasion fleets. Now they were operated by human engineers who'd spent months learning the systems through trial and error and sheer stubborn determination. They started systematically shooting down every supply ship in range. "Impossible," Vexthalon screamed. His translator couldn't handle how loud he was. "Those systems take 50 years of training." "The encryption codes alone, sir," the tactical officer said quietly. "They're not using the encryption. They're not using the computer systems at all. They're controlling the platforms manually. Everything is analog. Physical controls." For the first time in his 300-year life, Vexthalon felt real fear. Because if humans weren't following the rules of civilized warfare, if they were willing to jury-rig the galaxy's own weapons through pure improvisation and desperation, then how did you fight them? How did you calculate odds against an enemy that refused to accept what was impossible? In the northern mountains, Tae-sung watched 3 alien warships break apart in low orbit. He allowed himself a small smile. "Phase 1 complete," he said. "Now let's show them what we do next." Daehyun looked up from his calculations. His hands were covered in grease and blood from a cut he didn't remember getting. "You know this just made them really angry, right? They're going to hit us with everything they have." "Good," Tae-sung replied. "Let them commit all their forces. Let them get emotional. It's hard to think clearly when you're mad." Ji-won laughed. It was a harsh, tired sound. "Wait, did you just describe our entire species?" "No," Tae-sung said. "I just described our biggest advantage." In orbit, Vexthalon made his decision. "Deploy the full ground force. Every soldier we have. Every weapon. I want those mountains turned to glass. I want every resistance stronghold destroyed. Show these primitives what happens when they defy the council." His subordinates rushed to obey. It was exactly what Tae-sung wanted, because the northern mountains were empty. Every fighter had already left. Every weapon had been moved. Every supply had been hidden. When the massive alien warship fired its main weapon and turned 12 square kilometers of mountain into molten rock, it destroyed exactly nothing important. 400 empty caves, 17 fake ammunition dumps, and one very convincing hologram of a base that G1 had set up using stolen alien projectors. The real resistance had scattered into the civilian populations of all 17 settlements. 12,000 fighters now looked exactly like 60,000 normal people. Good luck telling them apart. This is tactically unsound, Vexthalin insisted, as his computers showed nothing but uncertainty. They abandoned defensible terrain. They gave up high ground. Basic doctrine says, respectfully Strategos, one of his advisors said, human doctrine seems to be survive until the enemy makes a mistake, then hurt them for it. Vexthalin's eye stalks curled in anger. Then we make no mistakes. Deploy ground forces to all 17 settlements.
Begin identification sweeps.
Anyone who resists is a fighter. Anyone who helps them is a fighter. We'll search every building if we have to. In Settlement 7, Commander Byung-ho received the order. Acknowledge, Strategos. Beginning immediate implementation. He closed the communication channel and looked at Hana. Get word to every cell. Tell Taesung the aliens are coming down. Time for Phase 2. Sir, that means I know what it means. What it meant was that 60,000 normal people were about to become soldiers. What it meant was every street would become a battlefield. Every building would hide an ambush. What it meant was the Council's occupation force was about to learn the difference between conquering a planet and actually holding it. The war was about to get ugly. The space station floated high above a purple planet. Inside the giant metal circle, aliens from 7 different worlds sat around a glowing table. They looked happy, very happy. These aliens had been winning wars for 3,000 years. They never lost. Not once. The leader was named Vexthalin. He had 4 arms and eyes on long stalks that moved around like snakes. He touched the glowing table and pictures appeared in the air. A blue and green planet, Earth's twin sister. The humans called it Kepler 442b. Friends, Vexthalin said through his translator box. His real voice was just clicks and whistles. The humans will give up in 40 days. Maybe less. My computers say so. The math is perfect. Around the table, the other aliens nodded. Some had crystal bodies that glowed blue. Some looked like big snakes with arms. Some had too many legs to count. But they all agreed. Humans were easy to beat. One alien named Shepatar spoke up. Her body was made of living crystal. The humans are so far behind us. They still use bullets and bombs. Old bombs. The kind that just explode. It's actually cute how weak they are. Vexthalin made a sound like laughing. His eye stalks curled up. Yes, and the best part? We found a human to help us. His name is Byung-ho. He's a commander. He's one of them, but he works for us now. When the resistance fighters see that their own people gave up, they'll quit too. Humans always break when their own kind betray them. The glowing table showed the whole planet now. Red dots marked 17 cities, all controlled by the aliens. The Council owned everything, the power, the food, the water, everything. Small yellow dots showed where the human fighters were hiding. In the mountains up north, maybe 12,000 fighters total, they had old weapons, broken weapons, stolen weapons, against the Council's army of 400,000 soldiers with guns that could bend space and time. Look at the math, Vexthalin said, spreading all 4 arms wide. We control the sky. We have 40 soldiers for every one of theirs. Our weapons are thousands of years better than theirs. Their leader is named Taesung. He commands farmers and miners with homemade bombs. This war is already over. We won before it started. The other aliens made happy sounds. They'd done this 200 times before on 200 different planets. Find a planet with good stuff, take it. If the locals fight back, crush them. Wait for surrender. Move on, simple, easy, boring almost. But there was something the aliens didn't know. Something their computers couldn't calculate. Something their 3,000 years of winning wars had never taught them. Humans don't fight fair. Humans cheat. And humans are very, very good at it. Down on the planet in a city called Settlement 7, Commander Byung-ho stood in his office. Screens covered every wall. Each screen showed a different city. Humans in gray uniforms walked around. They were cops now. Prison guards. Tax collectors. They worked for the aliens. Everyone hated them. A young woman walked in. Her name was Hana. She was a lieutenant. She handed Byung-ho a small computer pad. The morning reports, Commander. Her voice was flat, empty. She wouldn't look at him. Nobody on his team ever looked at him anymore. They all thought the same thing, but never said it out loud. Was he a traitor? Or was he just trying to keep people alive? Byung-ho read the reports. 47 people arrested last night. 15 might be resistance helpers. 3 weapons hideouts found and destroyed. The council's computers said 94% of humans would obey by next year. The alien boss wants an update, Hana said. He's happy with our work. Our work. The words tasted like poison. Like any of this was a choice. Byung-ho remembered the day the aliens came. Giant ships bigger than cities blocking out the sun. A message in every language on Earth. Surrender now or die. Humanity tried to fight. The space battle lasted 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Every human warship turned to dust by weapons that twisted reality itself. Then the aliens gave Byung-ho a choice. Not really a choice. Help them control the humans, keep some people alive. Or watch the aliens kill everyone slowly and carefully. Some choice. Tell the alien boss everything is going as planned, Byung-ho said. The resistance is getting weaker. Taesung's people are running out of food and bullets. They can't last much longer. It was all true. Every word. It was also completely wrong. Because what the aliens didn't understand was that humans are really good at looking defeated right before they win. Far away in the northern mountains, a man named Taesung sat in a cave that didn't show up on any alien scanner. Around him, tired men and women cleaned guns, wrapped bandages on wounds, and planned impossible things. They had no spaceships, no orbital weapons, no technology that could match the enemy. They had old rifles, homemade bombs, and pure hate. But they had one more thing, something the aliens had never fought before. Humans had spent 10,000 years learning how to kill each other in creative ways. Now they were using all those lessons on someone else. Are we ready? Asked Ji-won. She was 25 years old. Before the invasion, she grew food. Now she built bombs from fertilizer and anger. Taesung looked at a map scratched into the cave wall with rocks. No, but when has that ever stopped us? Across the cave, a man named Dae-hyun looked up from an alien weapon he'd taken apart. Pieces covered the ground. I think I figured it out. All their power cores use the same frequency. If we can make them all vibrate at once, we can turn their own guns into bombs, Ji-won finished. She smiled. It wasn't a nice smile, exactly. We just need to get close enough. Taesung nodded slowly. The aliens expected normal war. Armies fighting armies. Ships bombing bases. The slow math of who has more soldiers. That's how they'd won for 3,000 years. But humans had a saying. If you can't win the game, change the rules. Get everyone, Taesung said quietly. Tell them to bring anything that burns. We're done hiding. Up in space, Vexthalin looked at his glowing reports. Everything confirmed what he already knew. The human resistance was trapped, outgunned, and dying. Commander Byung-ho's cooperation was working perfectly. 40 days. Maybe less. The Council had seen this exact pattern on 2,000 worlds. The ending never changed. They really should have read more human history books. Because humans have another saying.
The one that really matters, never give up.
Never surrender. And if you're going to lose, make sure you take them down with you. The aliens expected an easy win. They were about to learn that nothing about humans is easy.